Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
It is. And so I'm excited to welcome the program author Brenda Wineapple, author of Ecstatic Nation. Brenda, thanks for calling.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
And also it says confidence, crisis, and compromise. So I just wanted to add the whole thing to it. But I'm almost brain dead at this point, Brenda, so we're going to have a fun conversation. But as we talked off air, you're enjoying the Miami Book Fair immensely, aren't you?
I am. It's a wonderful book fair, and it's reputed to be one of the best, and now I can see why. I
think so as well. Have you gone to any other book fairs?
I have. I've been to Texas and Nashville, the Southern Literary Writers Festival, and there's something up in Boston now because the Boston Book Festival. So there are more and more festivals, it seems, and I think they're great. They're great for readers. They're great for authors. They're obviously good for publishers. I just think it's a wonderful and just a wonderful way to meet people and meet people who care about writing.
Well, absolutely, Brenda, and I think what we're able to see ultimately is that there's nothing like Miami. Miami just dwarfs them all, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know you won't say anything because you're definitely going to say they're all fantastic, and I want to cover some of them, especially throughout the year. And I've covered the out in the Hollywood Book Fair, and that's, I think, Literary Orange in L.A. So I've been able to cover some California ones as well. But as I'm looking in out my studio window, it is snowing. So Brenda, so you keep thinking of Miami, and Eric, that's the thing. You get to enjoy Florida weather all the time.
Oh yeah, I'm looking out the studio right now, and it's bright and sunny. So I don't.
It's sunny now here too.
Exactly, Neil. I think you need to relocate. I'm telling you, it's too cold up there.
Yeah.
Well, someday I'll relocate. We'll see when it happens. But let's talk about Ecstatic Nation. Why did you want to write the book, Brenda?
I wanted to write, I've written biographies, I've written about history, but I've never written narrative nonfiction history before, and it's a period that is so exciting and so much happens, and it was such a daunting challenge, but it was a challenge I wanted to take on because it was a question, how do you narrate history, and in what kinds of ways can you find fresh paths through events or about people that we think we know. So to me it was very exciting and something I very much wanted to do. I also wanted to learn more about what happened in America in the middle of the 19th century.
Absolutely. It's something that anytime you study history, and Eric will agree with this as well, learning more about it, especially when Eric touched upon, but he said kind of talking about our public education system and education in general, we don't cover history enough. Eric, I guess what it is, it's just a snapshot, as we talked about with the one out there, right, Eric?
It's a snapshot, and now I think, at least in my experience in I have a large family, is we teach more instant gratification. We don't teach the knowledge or retain it. Why teach it? So we'll cover basically the Reader's Digest version of history, and then if you need to know the rest, you can Google it later when you need to know. And it's a shame.
Oh, how terrible!
It's a shame.
I wanted to make something where it was not a snapshot; it was more like a moving picture, and that suddenly you see people and events and crises and innovation all unfold in time, so that you get a sense of how various and diverse things are connected to one another, and that hopefully you turn the page so that it isn't just one thing, but you begin to sort of see it spool out over several pages long.
And that way keeps people involved, when you tell a story with history and people are able to connect to it, they stay interested and they want to know the rest of the story.
I think that's true, and I think you want stories. I think we all tell stories all the time, and history itself is a story. There are many, many stories, and the trick and the problem is weaving them together and finding out how they relate to one another, and that's the task. That's the task of the writer, to be able to figure out a way to make what's exciting to me as a writer or a historian exciting to other people and meaningful.
Exactly.
And pleasurable.
Brenda, what does history mean to you?
I'm sorry, you left.
Brenda, what does history mean to you? History in general.
Well, that's a good question. It means understanding things, people, events, desires that came before us, that came before me, that came before you, that are sort of that aren't rooted, that are that are rooted in our daily life, but that really have a context that we may not be immediately aware of. You walk down the street, and the street has a name. If it's not like 22nd Street, if it actually has a name like Main Street or Union Street or Sheridan Street, why is it called that? Who was Sheridan? Or was the Union Street of Union have to do with the Civil War? Is it a patriotic thing? So I think questions. I think it has to do with asking questions about, as I said, things, people, and events that came before us and that actually make us who we are, even if we aren't aware of it. Most definitely, and it's something where we look at history, and we look at history in so many ways, and it depends on the lens, the lens of how we view history. Because, Brenda, we can view our country in specific ways as everything was fantastic, development of it, and we wouldn't change anything, but other people will look at it far differently. Well, that's true, but both are true. It was fantastic, it is fantastic, and it's dreadful and terrible and tragic at the same time. And I think we don't have to make a choice, between one or another. It's not either or, it's actually both and. And we're connected to that. I mean, there are things that are, wonderful and things to be proud of today, but there are things that are humiliating, embarrassing, and, part of a heritage. And I think, to understand how those are woven together and how people made the choices that they made given what they knew at the time, suggests the ways in which people are fallible and sometimes did the best they could do and sometimes didn't. And I think we want to know that because we see that we're really connected to all that. And, we're both similar and we're both different. And we want to know how we're similar and how we're different and maybe how we would have made different choices. And how would we make those different choices in a certain way and in a certain aspect? And Eric, and I think that's what we see from a lot of times people writing down history. There are two stories to it. There's one, and then there's another, Eric.
Yeah.
And what is the right one? And Eric, I'm going to ask that to you, Brenda, in a second, but I wanted Eric kind of chime in on this.
What's the old saying? It keeps coming to mind. Those that don't learn from their history or from their past are doomed to repeat it. Yeah. So I think let's hope not that's not the case in terms of slavery. Exactly, but if we don't learn those lessons of how it came apart or how it came about, maybe that would reintegrate into society thousands of years later. So we need to understand that and know it. And plus, I think it teaches a lot of important life lessons just for our ongoing evolution of society. We talked to many authors today where a unifying theme was educating the history of other countries and how slavery was abolished later and those types of things, and how we're all human. We all connect and we're all human regardless of our race or our culture or where our heritage and background is. And I think it's important for people still to understand that and to know that we need to connect even more so than we are now. Absolutely. And one of the things we need to connect with is our own history. Exactly. The things that made us who we are and how we got here and the kind of values that people have had or still have and the way in which we want to debate those values. And there are ongoing debates, and there are debates, today that really seem very much like the debates that occurred in the 19th century and earlier. If it's a debate about compromise, is it a good thing to compromise? Should people stake out their own territory? The debates about states' rights or libertarianism, the debates about how much control the federal government should have as opposed to state government. All of those kinds of issues, they may seem abstract when I say them that way, but when you actually realize that people believed in these things and had, for certain reasons, and the debates had real consequences on the lives of people who were living at any time, at our time, at some other time, and just regular people, not necessarily presidents and generals, but people just trying to figure out how to live their lives. Yeah, and I think a lot of those things circle back, because we always, at least in present day, we always kind of take a step and look at our government, and there's a lot of folks who say there's too much control, not enough, That's right. Et cetera, et cetera. And like you said, those morals and those values that we had when we established the country, many years ago, why are we not Why are we getting away from that? Why are we changing?
Exactly. And what kinds of values? There was values on one hand, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But then you wonder, liberty for whom? Because there were a lot of people who didn't have that or didn't enjoy that liberty.
Exactly.
Then when you get liberty, you get emancipation. We're celebrating, this year the Emancipation Proclamation, celebrate the 13th Amendment, what have you. Later the 14th and 15th. That's all great. But then you remember, whoop, we forgot to give women the vote. They didn't get the vote till 1920. So, there are all kinds of things that, they're ups and downs, and they're fascinating to figure out. And it's exciting. It's always exciting to learn about other people, it seems to me.
Definitely.
Why we read novels, that's why we go to the movies or watch TV. That's why we sit and, read memoirs, or that's why we talk to other people. That's why we gossip.
Exactly.
Live, the Mighty Book Fair, powered by Life Improvement Radio on the Author's Corner show, and we're talking again about our history. And the thing I want to say, because what's really hard sometimes in this situation, Brenda, is to look at our country and see things and say, well, they should be different and they should have been changed, instead of looking at them as all of its history. We have to discuss everything, and yet we shouldn't be happy with everything. There are people out there that say, we need to tell American history the way we need to tell American history, while others say we shouldn't talk about it because it was horrible times and we have changed. What is your take on it?
Yeah, I don't think you should. I don't think you should suppress anything, the good or the bad. And I also, I think that's silly. I mean, you can't airbrush history. I mean, I suppose you can. You can't leave certain things out. You can't pretend certain things didn't happen. By the same token, there's more than one story, and there are many stories, and I think it's important to tell as many stories as possible, because then we get a fuller range of the complications that people face in their lives, and that people themselves, as well as historical events, are complicated. And I think that gives us a sense of, humility in the face of events where we think, we would have done better or could do better, or any of those kinds of things. And you realize that sometimes people of goodwill were trapped by what they had, by what they knew, by their economic situation, all of those things. So I think it's important to give as much information as possible. But then in writing a book, and hopefully in reading it, you do it in such a way as to make people excited, not to wag a finger and to moralize and say, this is bad or this is good, but to make people sort of excited and realize the full range, to see things, in full, as if it's a sculpture and you have to walk around it.
Absolutely, Brenda. Are you working on another book? I was going ahead and seeing if you had a Twitter, and I saw a lot of conversations you had with some major press. Are you looking to write another book?
Oh, yeah, but I'm not ready to talk about it yet on prime time. But, yeah, no, that's what I do, that's what I love to do, and that's what I look forward to doing again. So I hope to be fully immersed before too long. But I'm still dealing with this book. Yeah. Yes,
exactly. So meaning probably in the works 6 months from now or something like that.
Yeah, if we talked in 6 months, I'd give you a little bit more. At this point, this book is still so very fresh to me, it's hard to let go. It's hard to let go of a book that you've worked on many years.
Oh no! I just wanted to update and find out what's going on, Brenda. Absolutely, I always dig into people and find out more and more. But where can we purchase the book, Brenda, and learn more about you?
Well, you can purchase the book on any book-selling website, whether it's Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com, of course, or in your local independent bookstore here at the Miami Book Fair, although in Pittsburgh that would be difficult to come down. You can also go, I have a website, and it's myname.com. It's Brenda Wineapple, and it's just the way it sounds, all one word, .com, and that you can find out more information about me and more information about this book, Ecstatic Nation, or any of my other books. So it's all of the books that I've done are widely available and in print, which is a relief.
Well, fantastic, Brenda. Thanks again for calling the program. Best of luck and enjoy the rest of the Miami Book Fair. And
I will.
I'll have you back on your new book in 6 months. So just definitely reach out.
Sounds great. Okay, thanks so much.
All right, take care. All right.
All right, bye-bye.
You're listening to Author's Corner. Bye-bye. You're listening to Author's Corner on the Total Education Network, powered by Life Improvement Radio.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.